Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to my four-step video for Alcoholics Anonymous. And today I'll be starting by reading the Blue Book, and then I'll go into a brief description of the four-step inventory worksheet and show you the way that I was taught to do the four-step by my sponsor. And today I will start by reading page 64 on the Blue Book on the second paragraph. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unusable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Resentment is a number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anyone else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For when we have not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When that spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves, why were we angry? In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. And then it goes in to show you in the book how they write up their inventory sheet. See right here, they say, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause, his attraction to my wife, and it affects his sex relations. Mr. Brown told my wife from my mistress, and that affected his self-esteem, sex relations, self-esteem. Brown may get my job at the office, and that affects his security and self-esteem. He's also mad at Mrs. Jones because she's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend, and she's a gossip. So that affects his personal relations and self-esteem sphere. And it goes on and on in that direction. And I will also cover that in my four-step inventory sheet that I'm going to explain. So I'll skip that little part and keep reading. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and stayed sore. And we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that we might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of the spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things were poison. We turned back to our list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. That was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like the symptoms and the way they disturbed us, like ourselves, though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done." We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in a black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly, and we were willing to set these matters straight. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown and Mrs. Jones, the employer and the wife. This short word somehow touches every aspect of our life. It is an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did we not ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us had great self-confidence, but it didn't finally solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our infinite selves. We're in a world to play the role He assigns, just to an extent that we do as we think He would have us, and humbly rely on Him does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They must trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we try to be sensible on this question. It is so easy to get off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is lust of the lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that the most troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school allowed man no favor for the flare, but other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years. we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom have we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse suspicion, jealousy, or bitterness? Or where we where were we at fault, and what should we done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In all this, in this way, we tried to shape the sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to the test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live upon them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we not bring about still more harm in doing so. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should have to do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. What does this mean? We're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only half truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and we have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we were quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing, these are facts about our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of our own selves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see the terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. For we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made the decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. This is the book. A lot of universal truths in this book. So, for me personally, when I first attempted to get sober and complete the steps, I fell off at step 4. For me, I didn't want to dredge up all the negativity of my whole life because I felt like I thought about it way too much anyways. And I guess I was pretty lazy at the time too. A lot of people fall off on step 4 because it's an action step. And you got to get down to business, the nitty gritty of your life, and go through an inventory of every single thing that you've ever done wrong, and every single person that you've ever had a resentment towards. Not a lot of people want to do that, but check it out. When I got down to it, it only took 2 hours. I mean, I had to sit there and edit it a few times with my sponsor and do it a few more times, but I mean, all in all, 2-3 hours. And I felt it was cathartic afterwards. And a lot of people want to sit there and procrastinate with their step works. And dude, you can get through the steps in 90 days. My whole lineage of people that are in the lineage of my sponsors, grant sponsees, all that stuff, those people mostly, for the most part, do their steps within 90 days. It's good to just get them done. You don't want to procrastinate. You want to fix yourself and heal yourself as soon as possible so you could be as much potential use to help others. So here's the fun part. 4-step inventory sheets. All right. So with that being said, you can go take your computer, your phone, and type in 4-step inventory sheet. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. For anyone who's as dumb as me when it comes to technology. So you type in 4-step inventory worksheet on your Google browser. 12step.org comes up, 4-step help. I don't know what these other ones are, but it's probably the same. Click that and that'll come up. What I did is I went to Staples and I printed it out. And voila. So we'll go over this. There's a brief description on what it talks about, and I would highly recommend reading that because it's not too long. I'll read it right now. One of the requirements for sobriety is the need for confession of personality defects, a moral inventory, and step 4 is designed to be just this. There is a lot of hype and fear surrounding this step, like I was just talking about, mostly created by those who are yet to do it. Everyone's scared of this step because they've never done it, and all the hype is done by people who have not done it. And these worksheets are designed to make this task as easy and simple as possible. Everything contained in these sheets is directly from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. There is no opinion, just fact. To be able to start on this step, all the previous 3 steps must, of course, have been completed. So before starting, check with your sponsor, spiritual advisor, counselor, etc. to make sure you're ready. Many people get loaded or act out in some way when they reach this step. Why? They will tell you that the pain of dredging up memories long buried was too much to endure, or any one of these thousands of other excuses. The plain and simple fact is just this. The pain does not come in writing this inventory. The pain comes from in resisting the writing. Alcoholics and addicts time after time will rarely get loaded again and have to face some inner truths. The freedom from self is made impossible by holding on to fears and secrets we've harbored all our lives. The way of strength, paradoxically, is in becoming vulnerable. Here are some tips to help you with this moral inventory. Try and list resentments in groups, i.e. family, school, relationships, work, etc. If you're not sure in any area, call somebody and ask them for their experience, like a sponsor. Get into the habit of writing each day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. In the resentment inventory, don't write across, do it in columns, i.e. all names first, all causes second. This is most important. Be honest. The only person who truly benefits from this exercise is you. Don't cheat yourself out of the incredible experience. So here's some kind of prompt sheets that come with it. So we'll start out with the resentment inventory prompt sheet. What are you resentment of? Here are a list of people, institutions, and principles that may be helpful in your resentment inventory. Feel free to add your list if you need to. People: father, mother, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, clergy, police, lawyers, judges, doctors, employers, employees, co-workers, in-laws, husbands, wives, creditors, childhood friends, school friends, teachers, lifelong friends, best friends, acquaintances, girlfriends, boyfriends, parole officers, probation officers, AA friends, CA friends, NA friends, U.S. service friends. Institutions: marriage, Bible, church, religion, races, law, authority, government, educational system, correctional system, mental health system, philosophy, nationality. Principles: God, deity, retribution, 10 commandments, Jesus Christ, Satan, death, life after death, hell, heaven, sin, adultery, golden rule, original sin, 7 deadly sins. And here's the resentment sheet. This is pretty cool because it's really easy So right here in the first column, names of people, institutions, or principles which I am angry. So you just put the name down. You could put Jim. Okay, example. Jim, the cause. Why am I angry? Just write Jim, why you're angry, and what part of self was hurt or threatened in this box. Right here it says self-esteem, pride, emotional security, pocketbook, ambitions, personal relations, sex relations. Then the last part is, where was I to blame? Were you dishonest, selfish, self-seeking, frightened, or inconsiderate? And then at the last part, write the exact nature of your wrong. Be specific. I lied to mom. I cheated on spouse. These are the examples that they put right here. And just continue to go down the line of every single thing, every single person, place, or thing that you have a resentment towards. My sponsor told me to just sit there and write names in my notebook for a while. Just come up with a list of names. Everyone you've ever had a problem with. Boom, put your names down. It took me a week or two to think of all the names. You know, at first it was flowing, and then I was like, man, you know, this is people that I'm mad at from freaking kindergarten. Like, what, you know, how many people do I have to list here? But I would just say, for me personally, write the main people that you've had problem with over your life to get through it. And you also have sex relations worksheet that comes with it. So your resentments, fears, and sexual conduct harm done to others. Resentments. Column 1, resentments. List all people, places, things, and institutions. Okay, and the cause. Again, make a list for yourself. What happened in each instance? How did it make you feel? And just continue with girlfriends, boyfriends, anybody you've had sex, you know, someone, I don't know, whatever is pertinent to your life. Whom did you hurt? We list each thing we did to them. Did I unjustly arouse? Where was I at fault? What should I have done instead? Then you have a 4-step inventory fear sheet. So the fear inventory prompt sheet that comes along with when you print it out, here's a list of fears that are helpful in your fear inventory. Fear of God, fear of dying, fear of insanity, fear of insecurity, fear of rejection, loneliness, disease, alcohol, drugs, relapse, sex, sin, self-expression, of authority, of heights, unemployment, employment, parents, wife, husband, child, animals, insects, police, jail, prison, doctors, stealing, creditors, being found out, homosexual and lesbians, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of responsibility, fear of drowning, fear of men, fear of women, fear of being alone, fear of people, crying, poverty, races, unknown, abandonment, intimacy, disapproval, rejection, confrontation, sobrieties, hospitals, responsibilities, feeling of getting old, of hurting others, of violence, inventory, being alive, government, gangs, gossip, wealthy people, fear of guns, fear of change. So you just basically do the same thing on your fear inventory sheet. What are you afraid of? You know, jail, prison. What part of the self have I been relying on which has failed me? Self-esteem, pride, emotional security, pocketbook, ambitions, personal relations, sex relations, fear, prayer. And this is cool too, because at the end, when you write all your fears down, there's a fear prayer right there. God, please remove my fear of blank and direct my attention towards what you would have me to be. That's beautiful right there. So again, if you go online, type 4th step inventory worksheet, it makes it so easy for you. And it only takes, I don't know, like I said, a couple hours, a few hours to actually sit there and write it down. Your sponsor may critique you and you might have to write it over and over. But I think the biggest thing for me, once I wrote down all my resentments and fears and whatnot, I started seeing a pattern of consistent things in my relationships with others that I was doing wrong consistently. There was a pattern. I was selfish here. I was self-seeking there. I lied here. Like there's a consistent theme, and once you come across that consistent theme, you start seeing these inner truths about yourself. Like, man, maybe I was wrong in a lot of these situations, and that will get you prepared for step 5, for telling the exact nature of your wrongs to another individual. Kind of like a confession, getting it out. This whole process is to clean your side of the street. You're not worried about what other people do anymore. You're worried about what you can do to be as healthy and clean as possible and pure on your side, and fixing your life so that way you can get out and go help others. Because that's where the real liberation comes from, when you start helping others. And hopefully I explained it in an easy way for you to comprehend. And love you boys, love you women. Take care. That's my video.